I never imagined that the strongest word in my life would become faith. Not love. Not marriage. Not promises. Not even forgiveness. Just faith. Because without it, I'm certain my marriage would have become nothing more than a sad memory. A story people whispered about in frustration. Such a beautiful couple. What happened to them? She tried her best, but he changed. They had everything, but it wasn't enough. People always think a marriage breaks suddenly, like a glass slipping from your hand and shattering all at once. But that's not how ours fell apart. Our marriage cracked silently over months. Over hurt we didn't talk about. Over words we swallowed instead of saying out loud. Over expectations we didn't meet, and apologies we were too proud to give. And I remember the day it finally broke. Not because of a big fight. Not because of betrayal or lies. Not because of something dramatic. No, it ended on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I can still see the sunlight on the floor, the quiet sound of the fan, and the way my husband, Daniel, stood by the doorway, holding his car keys like he wasn't sure if he should put them down or walk out. I think we need a break, he said. No shouting. No anger. Just fatigue, deep bone heavy fatigue. We keep hurting each other, he continued softly. I don't know how to fix this anymore. And the worst part? I didn't beg him to stay. I just sat there, staring at the wall behind him, because I didn't know how to fix us either. He left that evening, quietly closing the door behind him like a stranger trying not to disturb the house. That was the night my marriage died. Or so I thought. The silence after he left. People think loneliness is loud, crying, screaming, calling someone's name. But loneliness has a sound you only understand once your partner walks away. It's the sound of dishes clinking in an empty kitchen. The soft echo of your footsteps because there's no one else in the house. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories that touch the heart and remind us of life's quiet miracles, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It truly helps our little storytelling family grow. The quiet of a phone that doesn't ring anymore. The ache of seeing his toothbrush still in the holder. The untouched side of the bed, cold and flat. The silence after Daniel left became a world of its own. I woke up early the next morning, out of habit, expecting to hear him in the bathroom, humming off-key like he always did. When the silence answered me instead, I sat on the edge of the bed for almost 10 minutes, staring at the closed door. Was it really over? Just like that? My chest tightened so much I had to remind myself to breathe. The first few days, I let the house stay messy. I didn't cook. I didn't talk to anyone. I just walked from room to room, touching his things, his jacket on the chair, his watch on the dresser, the book he never finished reading. When you lose someone to death, people mourn with you. They bring food. They call. They sit beside you. But when you lose someone to distance, to misunderstandings, to hurt that grew slowly, people don't know what to say. Most of them assumed we were just fighting. Some whispered that we'd get over it. Others quietly judged. But everyone had an opinion. Everyone except me. Because deep inside, I didn't know if I still had a marriage. The first whisper of faith. On the 6th night, when I couldn't sleep, I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and cried until my chest hurt. God, if you hear me, I don't know what to do anymore. I whispered into the darkness. Please, please help me. It wasn't a prayer full of poetry or perfect words. It wasn't strong or faithful or confident. It was desperate. It was broken. It was the only thing I had left. And that's when I felt it. Not a voice. Not a sign. Just a tiny, quiet warmth in my chest. A soft whisper I couldn't explain. Have faith. The words didn't fix anything. They didn't bring Daniel back to me. They didn't erase the months of hurt between us. But they gave me something I had lost without realizing. Hope. A small hope, yes. A thin thread. But hope nonetheless. I wiped my tears and looked around the dimly lit living room. If God hadn't abandoned me, maybe my marriage wasn't gone either. Daniel's absence, and the questions it raised. A week passed. Then 2. Daniel didn't come home, but he didn't disappear either. He sent polite messages. Did you eat? I'll send the money for the bills. Hope you're okay. Polite. Distant. Cold, even. But not cruel. That hurt more. Because cruelty means passion, at least some emotion. But politeness? That meant he had one foot already out of our life. I didn't reply at first. I didn't know how to. Then one night, after rereading his message for the 10th time, I wrote back, "Hope you're okay too." It was small. It was nothing. But it mattered. Because it was the first time we spoke without arguing. Still something was missing. There were questions I couldn't ask him. Do you still love me? Are you coming home? Is there someone else? When did we stop being us? I never spoke the questions out loud, but they stayed in my chest like stones. And every evening, when the house felt too big and too quiet, I prayed. Not for a miracle. Not for him to come running back. Just for clarity. For strength. For healing. Whatever that meant. And slowly faith became a routine. A comfort. A place to rest when my heart was too exhausted. The unexpected meeting. 3 weeks after Daniel left, something strange happened. I was in the grocery store, pushing my cart past the aisle of cooking oil, when I saw him. Daniel. He was standing near the canned food section, wearing the same work shirt he always wore. His hair messy like he'd run his hand through it too many times. For a moment, time froze. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Couldn't look away. He saw me too. His eyes softened instantly, relief mixed with guilt, mixed with something I couldn't name. We stood across from each other like strangers meeting for the first time. Then he took a small, hesitant step forward. "Hi," he said quietly. That one word broke me. Not because of how he said it, but because I realized how much I missed his voice. He whispered back. He looked down at the items in his basket, instant noodles, bread, coffee, things he used to buy when we were too tired to cook. "Are you doing okay?" he asked. I nodded, even though the answer was complicated. He nodded too, like both of us were pretending things didn't feel unbearably fragile. There was silence. Awkward. Heavy. The kind that comes after too much hurt. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if he wanted to stay and talk or run away. Then he surprised me. "I miss your cooking," he said with a small, uncertain smile. The words were simple, but I felt them like a spark in a dark room. Before I could respond, he added, "And I miss home." The way he said home wasn't casual. It was painful, vulnerable, real. Something in my chest softened, just a little, enough to let breath back into my body. "Home misses you too," I said quietly. His eyes glistened, barely, but enough for me to notice. We didn't hug. We didn't talk about the big things. We didn't suddenly fix our marriage in aisle 7 next to the canned tomatoes. But for the first time in weeks, I felt the smallest sign of hope. A gentle confirmation of the whisper I felt the night I prayed. Have faith. The door he finally knocked on. That evening, around 8:20 p.m., there was a knock on my front door. Soft. Hesitant. Familiar. My heart raced. I opened the door, and there he was. Daniel. Standing on the porch like he wasn't sure if he belonged there anymore. "I didn't want to just walk in," he said softly. Without a word, I stepped aside. He entered slowly, looking around the living room like it was a sacred place he hadn't touched in months. The house felt fuller, warmer, almost right. But then he turned to me, and what he said next made my breath catch. "I don't know how to fix everything," he whispered, "but I want to try." I felt the sting of tears, but this time they weren't from sadness. They were from something deeper, something like faith taking shape. "Trying is enough," I said. And with that simple sentence, the walls we had built, slowly, painfully, began to crack. Not break. Not crumble. Just crack. Enough for light to slip through. Enough for us to start again. Enough for the beginning of what Faith was preparing to restore. Daniel stood in the living room as if he were afraid to touch anything. As if the furniture would break. As if I would break. The way he looked around told me everything I had been afraid to ask. He missed home. He missed us. He missed the life we had built so slowly, and almost lost so quickly. But his shoulders were tense, his jaw tight, his hands repeatedly brushing through his hair. That was Daniel's silent language for, "I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. Please don't push me away." After a long pause, he finally spoke. "I don't want to talk about the big things yet," he said quietly. "Not tonight." "I know," I replied. Because the truth was, I wasn't ready either. Sometimes healing starts with silence, not conversations. Sometimes the softest, "I'm trying," is louder than any apology. A home that felt different, and the same. He walked toward the kitchen, running his fingers along the counter. His favorite mug was still there, hanging on its hook, the one with the chipped handle he refused to throw away. He touched it gently. "You kept it," he said, his voice almost breaking. "Of course I did." He smiled. A small smile. Thin. Fragile. But real. That moment reminded me that love isn't the grand gestures. It's the tiny things that stay behind when anger leaves. The mug he loved. The jacket on the chair. The picture frame on the table. Love lives in the objects we don't throw away. He opened the fridge and laughed softly. "You bought my favorite yogurt." "I always do," I said. He looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in months. Tenderness mixed with regret. It was the look of a husband realizing how badly he had missed his wife. The first honest conversation. We sat at the kitchen table, he with coffee, me with tea. An old habit. Back when mornings were simple and nights were peaceful. He held the warm mug between his palms, staring into it like the dark surface could tell him what to say. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you," he finally whispered. My chest tightened. I didn't say anything. I let him continue. I left because I was failing. As a husband. As a partner. As the person you believed I could be. I blinked back the immediate rush of tears. He shook his head, frustrated with himself. I kept thinking I'd make things worse if I stayed. Every time we argued, I felt like I wasn't enough for you anymore. "That's not true," I whispered. "It felt true," he said. And sometimes feelings become louder than facts. We both fell silent. His next words were barely audible. "I thought leaving was the only way to stop hurting you." I exhaled shakily. "You didn't stop hurting me," I said gently. "You just hurt me from a different place." He lowered his head. We didn't argue. We didn't defend ourselves. We just talked. Calmly. Quietly. Honestly. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't hear anger in his voice. I heard fear, yes. But also love. The faith that changed the room. I don't know how long we talked. Maybe 15 minutes. Maybe an hour. Time felt different that night. At one point, Daniel asked softly, "How have you been, really?" I hesitated. Should I tell him? Should I keep it to myself? Then I remembered the night I cried on the living room floor. The night I whispered to God for help. So I told him the truth. "I've been praying for us," I said. He looked up sharply, surprised, maybe even confused. "Praying," he repeated. "Yes," I said. "Not for you to come home. Not for us to magically fix everything. I prayed for clarity, for healing, for strength to walk through whatever happens next." Daniel swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't have to say anything." His voice broke slightly when he answered. "It means something, that you prayed for us." And just like that, the air shifted. The heaviness lifted a little. There was a softness between us, like a doorway cracking open. Faith didn't solve our problems. Faith gave us courage to face them. He stayed. But not really. When the clock struck 10:42 p.m., Daniel stood up awkwardly. "I should go," he murmured. A sharp pain ran through my chest. I tried not to show it. "Okay," I said softly. "Thank you for coming." He hesitated near the doorway, looking at the shoes he had taken off. He didn't want to go. I knew it. He knew it. But fear is a stubborn thing. "Can I come again?" he asked. "Whenever you're ready," I answered. He nodded. Then he walked out. The door closed behind him. But this time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt hopeful, like a seed had been planted. Small, delicate, quiet, but alive. The slow work of healing. The next day he texted me, "Good morning." A simple, innocent text. But I stared at it for a long time, because he hadn't said good morning in weeks. I replied, "Good morning, Daniel." That day he sent another message. I was thinking about our conversation. My hands trembled. "Me too," I wrote back. And that opened the door to more. Small messages. Short check-ins. Gentle words. Sometimes only 2 or 3 texts a day, but they mattered. It wasn't love letters. It wasn't promises. It wasn't dramatic gestures. It was effort. Honest, consistent effort. A healing built drop by drop, like water filling a dry well. The evening that changed everything. 5 days later, there was another knock on my door. Daniel again. But this time, he wasn't hesitant. He wasn't afraid to look at me. He wasn't running. He entered the living room without waiting for me to speak. "Can we talk again?" he asked. "Of course." We sat down, this time on the couch beside each other, not across the kitchen table. He didn't look nervous or confused. He looked ready. "I've been thinking a lot," he said. "About us. About everything we went through." I listened. "I keep remembering the good things," he continued. "The laughter. The trips. The nights we stayed up talking. The way you supported me when I didn't have anything. The way you held the home together when I was struggling." He paused. "I forgot all of that. I let stress take over. I let pride take over. I let fear take over." A single tear rolled down my cheek. "I hurt you," he whispered. "And I hate myself for it." I shook my head gently. "Hurting me doesn't make you a bad husband, Daniel. Staying hurt makes us lose each other." He inhaled deeply. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Yes." He met my eyes. "I still love you," he said, voice shaking. "I never stopped. I don't want to lose you. And if you're willing, I want to try again." Those words, those simple, trembling words, were the answer to every prayer I whispered in the silence. I felt my heart open. Not suddenly, not foolishly, but carefully. "I still love you too," I whispered. "And I'm willing." And for the first time in months, Daniel reached for my hand. Warm. Familiar. Safe. He held it tightly, like he was afraid it might disappear. "We'll take it slow," he said. "Yes," I replied. "We'll talk more." "Yes." "We'll heal." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "We'll heal," I repeated. And as he pulled me gently into his arms, I felt it again. That soft, quiet whisper in my heart. "Have faith. You're not alone. Your marriage is not finished. This is only the beginning of restoration." The night Daniel held my hand again, something gentle and unfamiliar filled the room. Not relief, not victory, not the dramatic feeling of "we're back together." Something quieter. A beginning. A soft rebuilding of trust. A place where everything fragile could be carried carefully, piece by piece. When he left that night, he didn't close the door silently like before. He turned back, took a small breath, and said, "I'll see you tomorrow." For the first time in a long while I believed him. And he kept his word. The return of the ordinary. The next evening, Daniel showed up again. He carried a small box of pastries, our favorite ones from the bakery near his old office. The pastries were slightly squished, but I didn't care. It wasn't the food. It was the effort, the intention, the message hidden inside the gesture. I remember what you love. He placed the box on the kitchen counter and rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. I wasn't sure what to bring, he said. You didn't have to bring anything. I know, he replied quietly, but I wanted to. We ate at the kitchen table, just like we had done hundreds of times before. But this time, every movement felt meaningful. The way he passed me a plate, the way I thanked him softly, the way our eyes met when we reached for the same napkin. The small things that once felt routine now felt like miracles. Faith doesn't always show up in thunder and lightning. Sometimes it appears in the quiet return of ordinary moments. Our first real conversation about pain. Halfway through the meal, Daniel put his fork down. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. What hurt you the most when I left? He looked terrified of the answer. I took a slow breath. It wasn't the silence, I said. It wasn't even the loneliness. He swallowed. It was the feeling that I wasn't worth fighting for anymore. Daniel closed his eyes, pained. That's not true, he whispered. You were the one thing I never stopped thinking about. Then why didn't you talk to me? I asked gently. Why didn't we try before walking away? He exhaled shakily. Because every time we tried to talk, it turned into a fight. I felt like I was failing in everything, at work, at home, as a man. And instead of telling you how scared I was, I hid it. I pretended everything was fine. And when I couldn't pretend anymore, I panicked. His voice cracked. So I ran. Not from you. From myself. I reached across the table and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. Running doesn't make you weak, I said softly. It makes you human. But coming back, that makes you brave. His eyes watered. I'm sorry, he whispered. I forgive you. Not because the pain suddenly disappeared. Not because everything was perfect now. But because I meant it. And because forgiveness was the soil our restoration needed. Faith in the middle of the mess. A few days later, Daniel came again. This time earlier than usual. He didn't bring pastries. He didn't bring words. He brought himself. He looked tired, like he had been wrestling with his own thoughts for hours. Can I stay a little longer today? He asked. You can stay as long as you want. He sat on the couch, and I sat beside him, not touching but close enough to feel his warmth. For several minutes, we said nothing. Then he smiled a little. This feels strange, he said. Being here but not knowing the rules. There are no rules, I replied. We're figuring it out together. He leaned back thinking. I've been praying too, he said suddenly. My heart skipped. You have? He nodded. I didn't know what to say at first. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, thinking, God, if you're still part of this, please help me not to mess it up again. A tear rolled down my cheek. And I whispered. And I felt something, he said. Something small. Something like hope. I touched his arm gently. That's how it starts, I said. Faith doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. He looked at me, eyes soft. Just like you did that night, he said quietly. I blinked. What do you mean? That night at the grocery store, when you said home misses you too. He paused. That was your whisper. That's when something in me began to break. But it wasn't a breaking that destroyed. It was a breaking that healed. The first night he fell asleep on the couch. It was Friday evening when the unexpected happened. Daniel and I were watching an old movie, one we had seen a dozen times. Halfway through, I looked beside me and found him asleep on the couch. His head slightly tilted. His breathing slow and even. His body finally relaxed, like he had stopped fighting the war inside him. I watched him silently. There was no resentment. No anger. No why did you leave me? Only warmth. Because this was the man I had prayed for. Not a perfect man. Not a man without flaws. Just Daniel. The one who always worked too hard, cared too deeply, and hid his pain too well. I brought him a blanket and placed it over him gently. He stirred but didn't wake. For a moment, I stood there and closed my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. Not because everything was fixed, but because something was changing. Faith doesn't restore everything at once. It restores the willingness to hope. Morning light. When I woke up the next morning, I expected the couch to be empty. I expected Daniel to have slipped out quietly, avoiding discomfort, avoiding awkwardness. But when I walked into the living room, he was sitting at the dining table with a cup of coffee and 2 plates of breakfast. He looked up and gave a small, shy smile. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I whispered, stunned. "I didn't want to leave without talking to you." My heart warmed. "You stayed." "Yeah." He rubbed his neck awkwardly. It just felt right. We sat together, eating in a comfortable silence. Halfway through the meal, Daniel set down his fork. "Can I ask you something hard?" he said. I nodded. "When I left, did you think we were truly over?" I hesitated. Honesty mattered now. "Yes," I said softly. "For a while, yes." He looked down. "Me too," he whispered. That scared me, because I realized I didn't want a life where you weren't part of it. My eyes softened. "We don't have to be who we were before," I said. "We can grow into something better." He nodded slowly. "I want that. I want us." The conversation that changed everything. Later that afternoon, we went for a walk around the neighborhood. Nothing dramatic. Just fresh air, sunlight, and the quiet crunch of leaves under our shoes. Daniel walked with his hands in his pockets, occasionally glancing at me. "I've been thinking about moving back home," he said finally. I stopped walking. My heart leaped, but I stayed calm. "Only if you're ready," I said. He shook his head gently. "I don't want to rush. Not this time. I want to do it right." "What does right mean to you?" I asked. He looked at the sky for a long moment. "It means counseling," he said. "Not because something is wrong with us, but because I don't ever want to reach that point again." Tears filled my eyes. "You're serious?" I whispered. He nodded. "I am." "And faith," he added quietly. "I want faith to be part of our home again, the way it was when we first got married." I felt my heart swell. "We'll do it together," I said. He gave me the softest smile I had seen in months. "I'm not coming back to pretend everything is fine," he said. "I'm coming back to build something new, something stronger." I breathed deeply. "Then I'm ready for that," I said. The first step toward home. As we walked back, Daniel slipped his hand into mine, not out of habit, but out of intention. A deliberate choice. A silent promise. A beginning of a new chapter neither of us expected. When we reached the house, he didn't go to the door. He turned to me and said, "I'll bring my things tomorrow." A soft wind brushed past us. A quiet confirmation. A whisper in my heart. Faith restores what fear breaks. Daniel leaned forward and kissed my forehead gently. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he said. "I didn't," I whispered. "I just held on to faith." And as he walked away, I knew something with absolute certainty. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, healing would take one step closer. Tomorrow, the man I loved would come home. I used to believe that rock bottom was a single moment. One loud crash, one dramatic scene, one night where everything shatters. But I was wrong. Rock bottom can come slowly, quietly, like a leaking faucet you ignore until the floor beneath you collapses. And that's exactly how it happened for me. It wasn't one fight. It wasn't one mistake. It wasn't one betrayal. It was years of small cuts, misunderstandings, unspoken hurt, and growing distance, all building up until they finally erupted into the moment that nearly destroyed us forever. That moment happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I The phone call that changed everything. I was sitting at the edge of the bed, folding laundry, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something in my spirit nudged me. Pick it up. I did. Is this his wife? A woman's voice. Nervous. Hesitant. My heart froze. Yes, I said slowly. I don't want to cause trouble, but you should know where he is right now. I felt my throat closing. She continued. He's at the cafe on Mall Road with a woman. They're sitting very close. I recognized him because, well, he comes here often. My mind went blank. It felt like someone had pulled the world out from beneath my feet. I didn't want to believe her. I didn't want to imagine him sitting across from another woman, talking, laughing, connecting, in ways he no longer did with me. But deep down, I knew something had been off for a long time. At that moment, I whispered 3 words. I give up. But then something happened. Not in the sky, not in the world, but inside me. A small voice, quiet but steady, whispered back, "No, not like this." And I realized something. I didn't want to give up on him. I didn't want to give up on us. Not yet. Not without a real fight. Not without truth. Not without clarity. Not without prayer. So I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and whispered, "God, guide me. Show me what to do. Please show me." When he got home that evening, I didn't yell. I didn't throw accusations. I didn't slam doors. I simply said, "We need to talk." He froze. I could see guilt in his eyes. Or maybe it was fear. Or maybe he knew exactly what this conversation was about. He sat down slowly. I sat across from him. And then, I told him what I had seen. Every detail. Every emotion. Every fear. His face changed, from confusion, to shock, to understanding. He didn't deny meeting the woman. He admitted it immediately. But then he said something I didn't expect. "She's not what you think. She's someone from work. Someone who has been through a lot. Someone who confides in me. But you're right. I should have told you. I should have never allowed it to look the way it did." I wanted to believe him. A part of me did believe him. But a deeper part of me whispered, "This is a sign. He is slipping away." And that terrified me more than anything else. That night, I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I didn't throw blame. I simply said, "We cannot continue like this. We need help. We need healing. We need God between us again." He stared at me for a long moment, then whispered, "You're right. I've been lost too. I want to fix this if you still want us." My heart softened. I wasn't sure how to move forward. I wasn't sure how to trust again. But I knew one thing for certain. If God is in it, anything is possible. That night, for the first time in years, we prayed together. It was awkward. It was emotional. It was raw, but it was real. And it was the beginning of our restoration. Healing a marriage is not like flipping a switch. It's not instant. It's not clean. It's not perfect. Healing is messy. Healing is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Healing is choosing each other every single day. Even when emotions are tired, trust is bruised and patience feels thin. But healing is also holy. Healing is powerful. Healing is proof that God can turn broken pieces into something stronger than before. This part of our story is where the rebuilding began. The weeks after the confrontation were strange. We weren't fighting, but we weren't fully okay either. We were gentle with each other, almost careful, like 2 people learning how to hold something fragile. He started coming home earlier. He stopped checking his phone in secret. He looked me in the eyes more often. He asked more questions. He listened, something he hadn't done in years. And I softened too. I stopped assuming the worst. I stopped replaying old fights. I stopped punishing him with silence. I stopped letting fear destroy moments that were meant to heal. But the biggest change, the one that shifted everything, was prayer. One evening after dinner, he walked up to me and said softly, "Can we pray together again?" Something in me broke, in the most beautiful way. We sat on the edge of the bed, held hands and closed our eyes. And he prayed. Not a perfect prayer. Not a memorized prayer. Just a real, raw, trembling prayer. God, help us trust again. Help us love again. Help me become the man she deserves. Help us rebuild what we broke. I had never heard his voice shake like that. It felt like the walls that had stood between us for years were suddenly cracking, and light was pouring in. From that night onward, prayer became our anchor. We did counseling, both together and separately. We learned things about each other that we should have learned 10 years earlier. He told me he felt unappreciated. I told him I felt invisible. He told me he was overwhelmed with things he never talked about. I told him I felt abandoned emotionally. We cried through some sessions. We laughed through others. Sometimes we walked out angry. Sometimes we walked out holding hands. But we never walked out ready to quit again. We were finally fighting for our marriage, not each other. One morning, I woke up to find a long message from him on my phone. He had written it at 3 a.m. while I was asleep right beside him. It said, "I didn't realize how far we had drifted until I almost lost you. And I swear, I will spend the rest of my life proving that you are the only woman I want, the only home I need, and the only heart I will hold. I love you, not the way I loved you before, but deeper. A love that has been tested. A love that God rebuilt. A love that will not die again." I cried for a long time after reading it, not because of the words, but because I felt in them the sincerity I had been longing to hear for so many years. That message was the moment I knew. My marriage is not just surviving, it is being restored. Months passed. Slowly, steadily, gently. Trust returned, not all at once, but piece by piece. We started going out together again. We cooked together. We walked around the neighborhood in the evenings. We talked, really talked, about dreams, fears, plans, future. And one evening, out of nowhere, he said, "I want to marry you again." I laughed because I thought he was joking. But he wasn't. He took my hands and whispered, "I want us to start fresh, not from pain but from faith." So we decided to renew our vows. It wasn't a big ceremony, just the two of us, a pastor, and a small garden behind our church. I wore a simple dress. He wore a suit he hadn't worn in years. When he looked into my eyes and repeated, "I choose you," I felt something inside me heal, not suddenly but deeply. That day didn't erase our past, but it redeemed it. Looking back now, I realize our marriage didn't heal because we magically stopped hurting. It healed because we refused to surrender to that hurt. It healed because we allowed God into spaces we had shut him out of. It healed because we chose humility over pride, prayer over silence, effort over comfort, forgiveness over anger, rebuilding over running away. And now, we are stronger than before. Not perfect, not flawless, just real and restored. If you're reading this and you're hurting, if you feel your marriage is slipping away, if you feel abandoned, unseen, or unloved, please hear me. God can restore what feels impossible. God can soften hearts that seem hardened. God can breathe life into relationships that feel dead. I witnessed it. I lived it. I survived it. And today, I am grateful for every tear, every prayer, every long night, because it led us to a love that is deeper than what we had before. My marriage was restored through faith, and yours can be too.